During the pandemic, we saw the biggest wealth transfer in history, but there's definitely no coordinated effort to ensure that those kind of things happen, right? Hello there, you 5.7 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining me on this voyage, surely towards freedom. If we're able to overcome adversity, if we're able to accept the validity of people's opposing opinions, then we will be able to create new alliances. Turn on the notification bell right now. We do a video every single day, and I want you to watch all of them so that we can share with you valuable information like this, gleaned from Peter Goodman, who's written a new book on Davos and the truth around globalist economics. Those of you that are regular viewers of this channel will be used to being condemned with the slur term conspiracy theorist, which, let's face it, ought to be retired at this point. In this video, we talk at depth to Peter Goodman about how the wealth transfer during the pandemic truly worked and how difficult it is to interrupt, disrupt, and even oppose the opinions of the powerful. Stay to the end of the video because it's fascinating.
Alluded to the wealth transfer and to the mechanics that perhaps allow it, but how serious and significant was the wealth transfer that took place in the last 3 years, particularly under the pandemic conditions? Is it a real thing, or is this more drawn from the tin foil hat realm of conspiracy?
Oh no, it's a real thing. I mean, the economic data shows it. I mean, around the globe, something like 90% of humanity saw their livelihoods hit by this pandemic, while a handful of billionaires saw their fortunes double and in some cases triple. And the pandemic was fantastic for Bezos. We all used Amazon more than ever. How would we have gotten through the pandemic without e-commerce? Companies like Benioff's Salesforce. By the way, Benioff said at Davos, it was virtual Davos back in 2021 because of the pandemic. He said the CEOs are the real heroes of the pandemic. I mean, parse that. Not frontline medical workers, not people emptying bedpans in senior citizens' homes or parents dealing with, kids stuck at home, distance learning. CEOs are the real heroes. And he specifically said, we gave you the vaccines and we gave you the credit through finance to keep companies going. And we did this, he said, not for profit, but to save the world. That, right there is revealing of this mindset that I think is dominant amongst the billionaires that we have to really get out from under. Now, Benioff saw his fortune grow dramatically because, his company is making the software that allows people to work from home remotely. So he's the ultimate winner. And yet he ran around taking a victory lap for stakeholder capitalism at a time when most working people were more vulnerable. People lost homes, people lost jobs, and the billionaires profited dramatically. And yet he used that to take a victory lap.
Do you think that the control that's exerted over the narrative presenting the beneficiaries as heroic rather than, simply as beneficiaries, even if it wasn't replaced by a more pejorative and condemning tale, is part of the problem? And if you have a situation like the pandemic, which enables unprecedented wealth transfer, again, without needing to stray into conspiratorial territory, do you feel that there would be a vested interest in perpetuating the conditions, or at least seeing what further opportunities may be presented by those conditions?
You mean in terms of the pandemic itself?
Yeah, but in terms of the pandemic and the crisis more broadly, and also a sort of a template of what do I want to say? The kind of opportunities that crisis provide are sort of seen as how can they be seen as a crisis? How can something that created so much wealth and so much opportunity be regarded as a crisis? It's comparable, in fact, to what you said a minute ago as the ultimate beneficiaries. The ultimate beneficiaries of the status quo are the people that attend a conference in order to discuss how to change it.
Right.
If the ultimate beneficiaries of the pandemic saw their interests improve so radically, what incentive is there for them to address these conditions? And how are we to assume that there hasn't been anything nefarious? I'm not suggesting that it's necessary to provide that, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I'll say this. Let me be careful here. So I don't put any stock in the theories that have held up things like vaccination. That somehow this whole pandemic is just a creation of big government combined with big business to enable profiteering. However, there is no question that the billionaire class is well practiced in using whatever crisis comes along for its own benefit. I mean, when there's a crisis, there's an opportunity to spend public money. And when there's an opportunity to spend public money, the people who are able to employ lobbyists, the way that most of us employ, somebody to clean our house if we're fortunate enough. I mean, Amazon has 100 lobbyists in Washington, D.C. So, what a coincidence that members of Congress keep waking up in the mood to pass bills, turn them into laws that are useful to Amazon. There's no question that after the 2008 global financial crisis, where governments in the wealthiest countries spent trillions of dollars to bail out financial institutions while convincing themselves that somehow it would be, unethical to bail out individual homeowners. I mean, in the States, we had this whole absurd argument where Obama's Treasury Secretary, Tim Geithner, kept saying, well, moral hazard, we can't reward people who borrow too much to go, build a fancy new kitchen. Really? So we're gonna give everybody this moral lesson that they can chew over for the rest of time, that you can wreck your company, you can wreck the economy, you can have Lehman Brothers, and you will get bailed out to the tune of literally trillions of dollars. Bankers will not lose their fortunes, but the homeowner, and we all know people who borrowed too much to build a fancy kitchen, but the homeowner who simply borrowed, I mean, this is a particularly American example, because they understood that I got to live in a good school district, and the only way I'm going to live in a good school district is to pay whatever it costs to get a house in that school district. And because other people borrowed so aggressively, I got to pay whatever it takes. Now we're going to punish those people, and we're going to consign them to downward mobility. Well, that's what actually happened. And meanwhile, the lobbyists got really good at figuring out how to turn whatever bailout schemes were available for corporate welfare. I mean, in the UK, bankers got bailed out, corporate taxes got lowered, and then in comes the coalition government in 2010, and they impose austerity on the entire country. So you have huge parts of deindustrialized, the north of England, famously, everybody likes to talk about, where people lost jobs, their wages went down over a decade. They watched London and the financial center prosper. I mean, that's going to have impacts on whatever ties there are within society that we need just to have a functioning society. And it also becomes a template for disaster for the billionaire class. And there's no question. I mean, my book gets into great details on this, that the bailouts, particularly in the first wave of the pandemic, were crafted by people who are very friendly to the needs of billionaires. People like Steve Mnuchin, Trump's Treasury Secretary, who was himself, a beneficiary of the foreclosure bubble that followed the last crisis in the US, flipped lots of houses for profit. He made sure to bail out, for instance, private equity bondholders in totally disastrous and climate change exacerbating fossil fuel ventures that didn't even make any money. Money was so cheap for so long that you had all these energy ventures where the business was borrow while you tell people you're going to drill and explore, then just take the money and hand it to shareholders, and then eventually you go bankrupt and it'll be okay. Well, Mnuchin basically just bailed all those guys out. So now we have all these completely nonsensical energy ventures that are exacerbating our climate change crisis, and it's just simply not fair. That is very much the story of the pandemic.
If you enjoyed this video, please have a look at either of these. Sign up to my mailing list right now and turn on the notification bell so you hear about our daily videos. Stay free.